Hey everyone, welcome back Tummy Channel. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of Noam Chomsky and his views on Marxism. Now, some say he totally misreads authoritarianism in Marxist contexts. So, what's the deal? Noam Chomsky and Marxism, the roots of modern authoritarianism. While Noam Chomsky does not explicitly critique Karl Marx's writings, he admits he is not a Marx scholar. He often implies that Marxism represents an authoritarian tradition. However, he also references a supposed left-libertarian tradition within Marxism. Heiko Koo examines Chomsky's views, highlighting how he misrepresents or misunderstands authentic Marxism. Chomsky's libertarian anarchist Noam Chomsky identifies as a libertarian anarchist, advocating for the dismantling of all unjustified authority and oppression. He envisions a society organized through industrial organization or council communism, aiming for both individual and collective development. His anarchism draws from Enlightenment thinkers such as Humboldt, Jefferson, Bakunin, and Rosa Luxemburg. While Chomsky does not directly critique Marx, his writings suggest that Marxism fosters authoritarianism. However, he acknowledges a left-libertarian tradition within Marxism, represented by theorists like Matic, Pannekoek, and Luxemburg. Chomsky argues, we are in a period of corporatization of power, consolidation of power, centralization. That's supposed to be good if you're a progressive, like a Marxist-Leninist. Out of the same background came three major things: fascism, Bolshevism, and corporate tyranny. They all grew out of the same more or less Hegelian roots: class warfare. p. 23, the role of centralization. Kismy asserts that the centralization of production was not an inherent feature of capitalism, but was instead designed by lawyers and courts, who created a new socio-economic system. He suggests that Marxist-Leninists view centralization as inherently good. However, Marxists argue that centralization is not intrinsically beneficial. Rather, it is a necessary stage in developing the means of production to abolish economic enslavement. Chomsky's perspective implies that Hegelian philosophy directly influenced economic centralization. Yet, monopolization has been a universal economic process for over 150 years, independent of Hegel's ideas. Industrial economies naturally consolidate due to economies of scale, not merely philosophical doctrines, while Chomsky acknowledges the role of courts and lawyers in shaping capitalism. Marxists emphasize that economic forces limit their influence. Chomsky, however, elevates legal doctrines as the primary drivers of modern socio-political structures. He suggests that the abandonment of classical liberalism led to centralization, claiming that had classical liberal principles prevailed, the horrors of the 20th century might have been avoided. Chomsky posits that classical liberals like Adam Smith and Thomas Jefferson would have been horrified by the rise of corporate and state power. However, the reality is that economic forces, not merely ideas, drove these changes. Despite his assertions, Chomsky fails to explain why or how a Marxist-Leninist would supposedly support the consolidation of power. Bakunin's anti-authoritarianism, B.S. Marx's Chomsky sees Mikhail Bakunin as a major influence, citing his prediction that intellectuals would take two paths, one toward state power and dictatorship, and the other toward serving private power in capitalist democracies. Chomsky calls this one of the few successful predictions in social science on democracy and education, p. 248. Bakunin, however, was a contradictory figure. His political activities showed a disregard for democratic structures, and he frequently founded secret societies based on personal dictatorship. Daniel Gurin claims that Bakunin only embraced anarchist ideas after 1864, but E.A.H.E. Carr's biography of Bakunin contradicts this, showing that even after 1864, Bakunin's secret alliance within the First International functioned as an authoritarian conspiratorial group. Carr writes, the revolution was to be directed not by any visible power, but by the collective dictatorship of all members of the alliance. Bakunin, p. 440. This structure mirrors the very concept of the vanguard party that anarchists often criticize in Leninism. In reality, most anarchist movements were highly hierarchical and authoritarian, despite claims to the contrary. Bakunin's belief in conspiratorial organization led him to create tightly controlled groups aimed at guiding revolutions. This is in stark contrast to Marxism, which adapts its organizational structure to historical circumstances, balancing openness and centralization as needed. Bakunin's approach can be seen in the failed 1870 Lyon Uprising, where he declared the state, abolished and attempted to impose revolutionary committees. However, he had not accounted for real power dynamics, and within days, the National Guard crushed the rebellion. His adventurism ignored material conditions in contrast to Marx's strategy, which carefully analyzes social forces before action. Engels, on anarchist anti-authoritarianism, succinctly critiqued Bakunin's anarchism: "No communal action is possible without submission on the part of some to an external will, that is to say, authority. Whether it be the will of a majority of voters, of a managing committee, or of one man alone, it is invariably a will imposed on dissidents. But without that single controlling will, no cooperation is possible. This highlights the fundamental flaw in anarchist ideology. In practice, even anarchist movements require structures of authority and coordination. Chomsky's romanticization of Bakunin ignores the reality that anarchist movements, like all political movements, require organization and leadership. Ultimately, Chomsky's analysis of Marxism and authoritarianism is based on assertion rather than historical or theoretical rigor. His reliance on Bakunin and his mischaracterization of Marxist centralization reveal a misunderstanding of both history and political economy. So, is Chomsky dismissing a real problem or shedding light on the ideal? Let's break it down in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives.